Welcome, everybody. So this is 2021, and this is the Year of the Peony because we have 230 plants, and we have 212 different varieties that we know are unique. And we have 198 that are already showing buds that we know should bloom. Sometimes the little ones that show a bud, the bud will kind of back out and it'll just produce foliage. So it's an amazing garden. They'll blast. If they blast, that means they aren't going to bloom even though you saw a little hint of a bud in the early stages. But we're pretty sure we're going to get, last year we got near 175 blooms. I would guess at least 190 to 195 this year.
We've counted that maybe.
Yeah, we counted.
26 new ones.
26 new plants?
That did not
bloom that did not bloom last year. So it's going to be fun, and it's going to peak in mid-June, like June 7th to June 20th. Come several times and you'll see dozens of peonies in their peak, different ones. And if you come 3 days later, some of those peaks will fade and new blooms and buds will open. And so if you're in town, it's just worth many visits. And we're working with parking. Just know if you come after 4, you should be pretty safe, I think, over here in this north lot. But officially 5 o'clock, and there's lots of daylight left at 5 o'clock. After 5 o'clock, you can park anywhere except handicapped, disability kind of spaces. So I'm Steve Hesla, a retired piano teacher from the university, and Gary Clark here, and we're working together with a committee. In fact, we have a weeding party this afternoon, so we're kind of keeping the garden, and it's low maintenance, so that's the good news. Okay, welcome. So here we are. This is a peony that last year was suffering because we discovered that kids were playing king on the mountain on this rock, and they were smashing this peony repeatedly, so we built a cage around it, and this seems to be a year where everybody is respecting. So this is nosegay, and we saved 3 blooms last year, and that was a save because several of the stems had been trampled. And this year it's just gone nuts. And Friday, this is now Tuesday, May 18th it is, May 18th. And on Friday, this was just buds, this past Friday. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and yesterday it was also just open. And this is a spectacular flower. Gary, what kind of flower, single or anemone? Or
that nosegay is a single.
Single. This is really a gorgeous single bloom. A single bloom does not have the complexity of more complex, the doubles. We won't see many doubles yet because they come later. But singles are early, and they have this beautiful center. It's kind of fun. You can see the size of the plant and the size of the bloom. So that's really a beauty. And it'll have maybe a week where it'll be showing beautiful flowers. Some of these early ones now will fade away. So this is a fern leaf peony, but it's a hybrid. I will look at its year. Oh, its year is gone. Maybe it doesn't have a year because some of them don't. So we'll have to maybe put an unknown on the sign there, so if there's no year. But this is another single. And then there's some that transition into other with those beautiful centers. And this kind of, the guard petals are kind of just very simple. So the guard petals come open when the bud, there's the guarding of the bloom, guarding of the stamen and the pistil and all that stuff that I don't know enough about. So fern leaf hybrid means it is a hybridized plant. Likely one of its parents will be the tenuifolia single that we will take a look at. So this is another early blooming, lovely peony. It's really, this year the foliage is just fabulous. So, okay, so let's walk along and look at some of the new ones first. Just a reminder that anyone can go online to facebook.com And then you don't have to be a Facebook member. Anybody can go. It's open to looking at. And you can type in Missoula Peony Garden or Reinhardt Peony Garden or just Peony Garden. You will, pretty soon you will get to this garden, and you'll get to see everything in order if you take a little tour. We'll try to explain it and keep it going. But this is bed F, and if you look at the flowers and the signs and plants, you've got F18, F20, F22. So everything's in order, and it's possible to find what the peonies are because there's also a directory at the facebook.com page. So F1, bed F, is our highest lettered bed, A, B, C, D, E, F, and F1, early bird, was also early last year. And I love this simple, and Gary's the one who's going to have to help us with this, but single, I think, and it looks like crepe paper kind of. The ruffled kind of texture in the petals sort of reminds me of those crepe paper flowers. That maybe that's in, maybe the peony inspired crepe paper. Wouldn't that be something? The idea of crepe, you know, the crepe of a, you can order a strawberry crepe. Well, here you could order a early bird crepe. So that's a really beautiful early blooming one. Last year there were pear blossoms that were just raining onto this flower, and here you can see a couple little pear blossoms that are coming down. So it's sort of timed with the pear tree up here that is losing, with the wind now, is losing it pretty much. You can still see a few little blooms up there. So that's another early one. Things are going pretty much the same order this year. We're very pleased about this bloom. A Japanese fernleaf single, and because it is called a species peony, it is, and the blooms don't last long. They come out, they rejoice in the sun, and then they get dried up and burned up by the sun, kind of. But here's a pretty good bloom there. And here's just a nice early one coming out, if you can get into the front of that or something. So that one is another single, and it's fernleaf single, so there's the ferny leaves of the, and oftentimes they are either a species peony, meaning they're original with no hybridization, they're thousands of years probably in existence, and they can be used as parents of other hybrids. So sometimes the best qualities from the fernleaf translate into that fernleaf hybrid that was shown earlier. That would be having a parent of another species peony. So species means original. So you can tell that this is a very early blooming peony because it's already shedding in the breeze, in the wind, and this is a hybrid. A species hybrid is called. So it has parentage from the, I think tenuifolia means the tenuous little tiny leaves. The long thread-like leaves. So needles almost. And so this is an original tenuifolia. Peonia tenuifolia single. So it's a single bloom. And it's an original plant, and it's very happy this year, even happier than last year. Everything's happier than last year with a few exceptions. It looks like a well-established garden now in its third summer, third year of blooms. So this is also a single. A fun fact about peony blooms is that they open up as the sun and the heat come up in the morning, and then they close up at night, or if clouds come over, even if it just becomes suddenly a very cloudy day, the peonies go time to go to sleep. I don't know if that's to protect them for longevity or something, but that's a mechanism, and that's true of all these blooms. So these are still kind of closed, maybe because it's cloudy today.
I've ever seen.
So
This one.
that's the two, a hybrid and an original. Okay, and I think Those are the, oh, and then we have one new little, this bloom just came up over the weekend. And you might want to show how tiny this little plant is. Just, there it is, the whole plant. And probably next year it'll be bigger. I think this is its first year, because we transplanted it here because we knew it was smaller and it should have a front row seat. So it can be seen as well as see, the nice guests. So smoothie eye, we call it. I don't know if that's proper pronunciation, but it's in the direction of being a species peony, but I haven't researched that yet. So it's just another pretty early blooming plant. So the only one that isn't red is, so far, the nosegay. And those are the blooms. Where are we? Buckeye Bell. So we're pleased that this one is seemingly showing signs now. Buckeye Bell last year had botrytis, and botrytis is a fungus. Is that true, Gary? A fungus that certain conditions of moisture and cold and kind of too much wet, too much mulch, or too much something around the base of the stem will cause wilt. And here we have a case of botrytis. And there are sort of, in fact, we've had two different issues with peonies. It's about the only thing that can bother them. But if they get it, it attacks the stem where it meets the earth, and it just sort of plops over and dies. And yet the plant right next to it might be fine for the whole season. So we're trying to learn and take advice, but also not dig up a whole plant just because it's susceptible, and trying to give it a chance. And sometimes now these second years of this fungus, the plants are doing better this year. Buckeye Bell we had to dig up last year, and we transplanted, and then we kept the good part of the previous year's root system, and it's happy. So we're finding out.
It helps remove that dead stem, just cut it?
You know, you're supposed to, and then you're supposed to sterilize the tool with Clorox and water, and not go around the garden spreading it to others, because even though they might not have the conditions to foster botrytis, you don't want to give them a chance. The spores are everywhere, but they will multiply more where there's injury. And they will attack an injured, like if a dog accidentally kicks the stem and it gets a little wound, if you will, then the spores go crazy because they have access to the vulnerability of the plant. So it's best when they stay intact. We're having a little weeding party this afternoon, so we're going to get rid of some of these dandelions, and we're going to train people to be very careful not to pierce one of these watering circles, if you will, that wander around underneath the mulch, so that we have some training, because somebody can go, oh, I got this dandelion, and then we have to repair. So we're trying to learn about that. This is actually a good chance for this. Last year we had one little sprig, and we added to it a new plant, and so the little sprig from last year is coming back, and we hope it's gonna looks almost like moss. That's the baby, but it's the original, and this is the transplant, and it's showing good signs of being happy. So this is also a species peony. This is the double flower. Here it says Peonia officinalis, and I'm not saying it all right, tenuifolia rubra double. And there's probably English mixed in with the double there, but officially, maybe I could say, the peony that is officially a species from forever ago, with fern leaves and red double flowers. And the double's different from the singles. And we don't have any doubles to show yet, but we will in a week, I would think, or 2 weeks for sure, have lots of double flowers. I was going to show over here, this is very interesting, new since last year. This is an emigrant, this flower. And this is bed A now. At the top of the steps, the very first peony you see is from China, literally from China. Not doctored up, could be a hybrid, but it's ancient. And somebody I don't know I don't know the name, but I know a little bit the story. And a gentleman that was leaving China during the Cultural Revolution, an American, somehow got out with some roots from this particular peony. So it came literally from China to the United States, and then he settled in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I don't know his circumstances, but I do know because the people who are planting this here are the Reinhardts with their friends from Ann Arbor, Michigan, agreed to put this peony in this garden. It has no name that we know of, so we're calling it the Chinese emigre. And emigre means an immigrant, so that's the person. Well, she's an emigre. So I don't know if it's he or she, but it's we call it Chinese emigre, and it'll have its own little sign. We're updating some signs. And this was planted here last summer because it was shipped from Michigan in a very careful shipment of a pot and soil, and we tried to keep all the soil together. And I can't remember, this one was misnamed last year. It came up and it bloomed, and it said it was Margaret Truman or something, and it wasn't. And so we have a different one, but we'll find out what that one is on the directory, actually, the one I sent you. Directory A2, that's A2. This one last year was showing signs of not being happy at all in this garden. And this is fun because it's Koningin Wilhelmina, the Queen of the Netherlands, literally Queen Wilhelmina. And she was queen in 1908, I believe. So this plant was named in her honor from Holland. And it's here now. And it's showing all kinds of signs of being happy this year. So we think it's going to take off finally. So we had to really make sure we watered it a lot last year. So that's fun. I don't think they're buds this year, but we'll just be happy if it survives. There's a couple things to show maybe this round. Here's our sign. And there's going to be a different and more permanent sign, but it's very close to the same. So that's coming. This is our oldest registered peony. So some are older because the originals are thousands, maybe a couple thousand or more years old. But this one is among my favorites because 1768 is when it was registered with the British, whatever it is, Peony Society. And that was registered because it was found on the hillsides of western Turkey, on hills overlooking the Mediterranean. And they grow wild. It's like, this is the dandelion of Turkey and the Mediterranean, different places. Grows up on the hillsides, not down on the coast. Has to have a little bit of elevation, I believe, but I'm not sure, so I won't promise. But the blooms are amazing. And if we walk over here, that is the bloom of that peregrina. And the bloom is so beautiful. It's like this scarlet red or orange color. That's pretty true color right there. And we'll show that in a week or two. And the foliage is amazing. It's so different and unique. It's just a happy wildflower. So species peonies are wildflowers. I guess we could add species to this registration. So it wasn't hybridized, it was just nourished, if you will, or nurtured by the botanist. Philip Miller, I think was his name, maybe, in England. And he got it something like 1750, and by 1768 he felt he could register it with the registered peonies of the world. So that's another up-and-coming wonder. And this is maybe the second year now of an Ito, and this doesn't say right here that it's an Ito, Old Rose Dandy. But the way we can tell that it's an Ito is how the buds look, and they have this particular look. An Ito is a hybrid, it's a cross between a tree peony. We'll take a look at a tree peony. Some of this is review from last year, but a tree peony crossed with an herbaceous peony. This would be an example of an herbaceous peony. And the stems die down every winter or late autumn, and it just goes dormant for the winter. And the same is true of an ito. The ito, the stems will die back, maybe a little huskier, because the stems are pretty sturdy. They're sort of influenced by the tree peony, which we'll be sure we show at least a tree. So these are getting ready to have many, many blooms this year, and these buds grow into these enormous flowers that are just, it's a spectacular accomplishment. This Toichi guy, Toichi Ito in Japan, I believe it was 1948.
Let me show that. That's chocolate sold.
There's not a single eye.
Show them the eyes rotted off. Look at the roots are growing.
This is an example of we don't know always why, but this was a new root we got last fall to replace previous. We're going to take it back to our place and give it a chance to just maybe do whatever it'll do this summer. I don't know if I don't think it can send up any kind of, there's no eyes, they rotted off for whatever reason. So this is a Chocolate Soldier is the name, and we were hoping it would do its thing, but it's kind of, we wonder if sometimes you get these unique colors, like this is a chocolate colored bloom, and maybe hybridizing to get a unique color also weakens the plant in some way, we don't know, but we're told this one is hard to get to do. So we're going to try a different plant in that space and see if we can nurse this one back to health or get something similar. This Ito here is the cross between a tree and an herbaceous. Here's herbaceous. And the foliage is part of what tells you that it's an Ito. And Toichi Ito hybridized these. It took thousands of tries before they found a plant that would, the seeds were always sterile, let's put it that way. And it would never multiply and it wouldn't live. And so he finally got like 6 or 7 plants in a pot in 1950 something. I'll have to review all that. But this was the result, and now we have Itos. I think we have maybe 11 different Itos in the garden, and they flourish. They really love life. They're really strong. They don't need support. They don't tip over in the wind so much. They're just sturdy. And these are very telltale buds. If you look, a normal bud is rounded, and everybody talks about the ants needing to chew some of them so the bud will open, but in fact it's just the ants like the sugars. And so they are there, and then they'll go for the sugar, but with or without an ant, that bud will open. Okay, so this is the sort of the miracle plant. So this is Peonia brownii. And again, I'm not an expert on how to say brownie eye, but 2 eyes in a row. Brownie E, it might be in Latin. But it's, Peonia means peony, of course. And it is, we dug it up last summer in the wilds of Oregon, because the one that we had here in the original summer died back. And they're kind of, that one was vulnerable, but these look like they are just thrilled to be back. We brought back all the soil. We brought back as much of everything as we could, and it was in an area where there were thousands of these, so we weren't depleting anything. And so it was a joy to see these come up this spring. And these peonies are this is one of 2 species peonies of the Western Hemisphere, as far as I can tell. It's only 2 in the United States. One that and this grows wild in Montana, but I've never seen it. It's very kind of reclusive because it comes up under ponderosa trees, for example, in the ponderosa forest. This is an Austrian pine, so we're giving it whatever acid it would get from the pine trees. And then it's not only reclusive and kind of it's not a garden treasure flower. It's kind of a unique wild flower. And we hope within a couple of years we'll get some blooms. So if this is the summer for it to produce its roots and make even more next year, maybe we'll get a bud next year. And it's, again, there's only 2 in the Western Hemisphere, I think, at all, North and South America. And at least in North America, it's 1 of 2. And the other one grows in California and not in Montana. But this one can also grow in the high altitudes of California. So Northern California, Wyoming, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana. I think I said them all, maybe not. I don't think Alaska is too far north, maybe. But if after it's bloomed, then it just dies back like a bitterroot, kind of just disappears. And this hasn't been disappearing, maybe because it hasn't gone into that part of its life. Yes, please enjoy. Come and enjoy the garden. You can go to facebook.com, add Peony Garden or Reinhardt Peony Garden or Montana Peony Garden. Again, this is the only public peony garden west of the Mississippi River that is dedicated to peonies and open to the public. And it's free admission, but of course donations are welcome, and we're getting increasingly a simple way to help keep and propagate and maintain this beautiful garden. It's a treasure to Montana, a treasure for Montana, a wonderful feature in the landscape, the University of Montana. It's also part of the State of Montana Arboretum, which is the host of the State Arboretum. So we have certain qualifications that make it that way, and having a native plant that is native to Montana is one of the specifications to be in the Arboretum. So we're thrilled that we have that. Come and visit.